In this episode, we have Jordi, executive chairman and co-founder of TechTorch, and one of the most respected thinkers in transforming enterprise technology for PE-backed businesses. At TechTorch, Jordi leads teams delivering technology services for PE-backed businesses across core verticals, commercial excellence, everything from code to cash, data, and AI services, where they build custom AI agents for portfolio companies. All of this is powered by their platform Beacon, TechTorch's platform that hosts and runs these agents, enabling portfolio companies to deploy them quickly and at scale. Prior to starting TechTorch, Jordi spent 14 years at Bain Company as a partner and advising global enterprises on cloud transformation, digital strategy, M&A integration, and major turnaround programs. He later led large-scale transformation as SVP of Operations at Cisco, managing new business models, monetization, global systems, and innovation at scale. So, Jordi, before we dive into the main theme for today, you operated across consulting, big tech, now PE-backed enterprise transformation, which is near and dear to my heart as well. What early experiences shaped the way you think about building and scaling organizations today?
Yeah. I started my career as an engineer, then spent 15 years at Bain, and Bain was kind of the school of strategy where you basically were doing these crisp strategy presentations and talking to the private equity or big companies about the what. Like you gotta, grow into this market, build these new products.
Yeah.
And I thought the world was a good world, but I couldn't understand why those beautiful strategies sometimes didn't get implemented. Then I made the switch to my second part of my career, which was I was SVP of Operations at Cisco. The COO, Irving Tan, who now leads Wet and Digital, he called me and said, "Hey, Cisco's transforming. We're traditionally a hardware business, equipment solutions, but we want to be more as a service, more flexible. And basically, we got to reshape the operations internally to adapt to that motion." And there is where I realized how hard it is to go from PowerPoint to the reality of very specific processes, policies, systems, data. And that was a great school for me, where I kind of realized I kept defining it as the big chasm between business, what the business wants, versus what the machine can deliver, and almost like a friction, right? It's like we want to do this, that, the other, and then operations would say, "Well, that's going to take this many months, this much, this much," and that was the genesis of my third act, which was what if, right? What if we could accelerate that chasm or close the chasm with speed? If business could tell me, "I want to achieve this quote to cash this way, that way," what if speed was the answer? And TechTorch was born out of that necessity of how can we make that happen? And obviously AI has been a blessing, as in speed,
Nice.
in essence. So that's
actually
kind of the
very
transformation journey for me.
That's a very, very well put story, I'd say, as well, in that transformation. It's very gradual. And you mentioned when we've chatted before, you mentioned this idea of rebuilding finance from scratch, designing a zero-based AI-first operating model instead of layering tech on top of legacy processes. This is something that I know we've spoken about at length before. From your vantage point, what fundamentally changes when CFOs shift from, say, optimizing, adjusting existing frameworks or systems and processes to actually reimagining finance from the ground up? And it could be from even from the order to cash, where you really specialize as well, and that process that you've really taken it. But what does that take? What does it actually look like?
Yeah, no, it's and we're getting a lot of those discussions because, and we'll talk probably more about it, but the CFO finance is private equities by companies, and you have different aspects, but the person that actually almost steers the value creation blueprint is the CFO. He or she sits in that and is steering that. So there's a lot of asks from private equities to us about reimagining the finance organization grounds up. And I would say, to your question, what changes? Probably maybe three things. The first one is the time horizon. If you talk to CFOs today, they talk about I close in I close in 5 days or in 2 weeks. We do forecast during this period. We're doing budgeting at the end of the year. And so that time horizon about from going to cycles to actually being continuous, that's a whole reimagining. It's like, no, imagine that there's no time component. You're shifting the time horizon. That's fundamental. That's a very important change. The other one is the unit of work. We could, I remember one of my first companies we work with is the CFO saying, "I'm managing things through post-its, right? So there's tasks that are happening, right? And just changing that to managing flows. You're literally thinking about procure-to-pay, forecast to decision, revenue management. So that's the second, like that unit of work, and then the humans. So again, repeating that post-it example, right? In finance, you have all these heroic people that close make sure that the DSOs go down, that are doing things, that are calling clients to, and changing the role of the human from being a router between the different systems to actually being on top and then letting agents do it. So I know I've said a lot of high level things, but I would say that the timing component, thinking about the units of work and then the role of the humans, it's fundamentally, I believe, it's going to be radically different in 1-2 years as these companies become AI native from a finance perspective.
Yeah, maybe I can just add on to that. Like one thing that we're seeing is, you say unit of work, like one of the key processes that we see an agent being able to do is think of like the contract review process, right? Like, so it's a subset of the entire, like, say, your procure-to-pay process, but it's very key because somebody needs to review those contracts and then say, this is actually okay, not okay, and how do I actually move that forward? The way you would actually tackle that before is you have to hire legal, or like if your legal team won't have time, so you have to hire another legal team, another legal person to actually speed that up, and because only then is the process actually working. But now with an AI agent, you can say, listen, like that's the same outcome I'm able to get, but now I can get my procurement folks to actually be smart with even legal by just tagging an agent to them. So that's one thing that we're seeing, that the smarter and smarter, just you think about you think about like all those flows, you think about sub flows where you can actually apply agents to, and then say, great, like agents work really well over here, let me just apply that over there as well. So it really frees up time for them to go and tackle more and more problems.
Yeah, time and brain power, right? Because I mean, it happens to all of us, right? When we're constantly replying emails and but what if, right, those emails were managed by an agent and we could think? It's incredible, right? It's almost scary. Like, okay, now you gotta be smarter. We keep hearing about AI will make us dumber. Maybe. But if we apply it properly, actually, it's force us to elevate our thinking, right? So there's probably two sides of this coin. I'm the optimist that says, no, actually, it's going to make us smarter because it's going to elevate, it's going to eliminate things that we do without thinking, or and we will spend more time thinking. So that's the one side, I guess, of the positive side of the AI.
Yeah, and so one of the things, like something that when we work with the partners, they emphasize that finance isn't just a reporting engine anymore, and it really has to contribute to EBITDA, right? And in fact, you mentioned this as well, that they are the stewards of the transformation almost inside these companies. When you look at the companies that you work with, what does that shift from, say, just a reporting engine to actually delivering EBITDA look like? Like in practice, like, can you give me an example of what that actually looks like in practice?
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. Like, I think small companies, the finance organization starts to be more of an accountant-based organization. You go to public companies, those CFOs are more value creation. And in the world of PE, you almost need both, but you need those CFOs that can make sure that everything is established, but also they're thinking EBITDA constantly. So examples where we see this shift is literally when the discussions go to the point of task to value creation. So think about people that are very focused on, okay, we gotta get, again, we specialize in revenue management, right? So I'm looking for nails, I have a hammer. But when we think about how AI can be applied to detect revenue leakage, or improving prices, or having a discount management that works, that kind of the revenue quality discussion, you realize that now the CFO has a step out of being an accountant to actually being more value creation. When the person is thinking about where is the highest ROI in my investments, right, or where the people are working, and then you redirect those resources there to the highest ROI, I guess that's another very specific example where you realize that you're talking to someone that's thinking value creation versus accounting. And obviously there's the obvious thing in working capital, which is very, very important, and you guys also play a role there. But people that are okay, DSOs are going up. What's going on here? How can we restrict that? How can we unlock cash? So going from task management to value creation, procurement, obviously. So that's when you realize that the person is leading a value creation lever versus is just managing finance.
Makes sense. And that's a good point as well. Like, and one of the ways that we've seen that work is, like you mentioned, they're not really worried about that task. Like then they first of all moved away from post-it note world to saying, I actually care about the flows and I actually care about the outcomes that those flows are deploying. So, and they know every leading indicator in the business and they're tracking it and they're on top of it. So that, I guess, even if they just get there, like that's an amazing place to be, because only then can they actually do value creation on top.
I think you're right, and I kind of I forgot about the core essence when we work with. So PEs buy a company, and we get a phone call that says, "Okay, we bought this company." The first thing and the PEs usually invest in companies based on a set of SIMs, like the documents that the companies have prepared to sell that. And they are static documents, like they look very good, they're amazing, and I'm sure they're reliable, but they're static. And what happens is PEs have a very, I don't know if the word is aggressive, but it's quite a very thorough way of managing businesses that's very based on data. Yeah. So they have monthly board meetings, but they have weekly reports that you gotta submit. And you're absolutely right. One of the first things we do when we get engaged is building that reporting that the CFO otherwise would have to do by hand and PowerPoints and all that. And I think that exercise of how much are you spending, like how much are you cross-selling, based on the value creation, there's different reports. It's very critical, and it elevates that function from a G&A function to a value creation function. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And like whenever I hear back from the CFO and says that a month close, I'm like, oh shit, you're so screwed. That's like when when I know, oh no, it's out. They're not going to be. It's going to be a very short-lived tenure, especially in the PE world as well. So, and so the other piece is that like a lot of the PE-backed companies and the CFOs in the PE-backed companies say modernization feels like pushing against legacy systems and processes, because like a lot of these companies have grown through acquisitions, they have multiple systems, they're not necessarily, their sort of system of record is a little messy, typically. It's what the ground reality is. So, and when those limits become clear, what signals tell you it's time to build a parallel AI native operating system rather than keep retrofitting the legacy one? Because you still have to like close, you still have to pay, you still have to do all of those things. You're probably running on your legacy systems. But like, what's that trigger point where you say, man, I really need to start doing this parallelly, otherwise I'm not gonna, it's gonna be a really messy world.
Yeah, and I guess the preface for that is we don't, there are very few companies that say it's not a binary, like we're gonna move to an AI native. Obviously, there's a few companies where we're starting grounds up, but that's a great question. So I call it symptoms and then root causes. So first one is what are you feeling as a patient? What's hurting, right? And we get phone calls and they say, oh, look, we gotta grow 5x, but every time I grow 20%, my cost is raising 20%. So there's no scalability. There's a cost issue here. We're scaling linearly with revenue, and that cannot be. Other symptom where it hurts is our customers are starting to be unhappy because we're getting a lot of credit notes or billing errors, or so that's another symptom, like friction with customers.
Mm.
The third thing that CFOs say is, I don't know what's going on, but I'm hearing the salespeople saying that they cannot grow the business because they don't have visibility into whether that company has paid their what products have we sold them or what's the information. So the CFO, although they don't own sales, they're downstream from it, and they're very attuned to the complaints on systems and data, because at the end of the day, a lot of the data sits in CFO land. And sales saying I cannot sell because, so that's the third thing, like noise about sales is telling me they cannot grow because of my data. And then the pure operating costs that you see there, and time, right? I guess the fifth one that
That's a
comes to
good
mind
point.
is, yeah,
No, sorry, go ahead.
that's right. That's a symptom, and then we go there. We understand the symptoms. We map it to the value creation plus. Okay, you're feeling this, and then to your point, when do you realize that you got to do something about it? As we go and do the quick analysis, and we send our probes and do all these things, I think you hit it. Like the first thing we see is a complete data sprawl all over. Like they have multiple ERPs. Excel is where you manage the business. Like, okay, this is a symptom. This is not a symptom. This is a root cause. There's no or very limited automation, so everything is kind of done, hard coded. We see a lot of point solutions that is not well integrated. And then the last one, I'll stop here, is when humans are, again, the routers. So emails, post-its, that's running the business.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if you put me against the wall, it's like, look, when it's time to go AI native is you've automated tasks, but you see that the cycle times and errors don't improve. So there's something like you've hit a plateau. Like you feel, hey, I have an ERP, I've done this, I've done that. My Salesforce is integrated with my NetSuite, my procurement cycles, but this is not improving. Like, okay, maybe now we should take a look at that. Every time I need to build reports and everything else, it takes me forever. Like, I think AI can help you here. And then the very common one, I know I'm being very long in these answers, sorry. But the very common one is, hey, I'm paying ChatGPT. This team is telling me they've done pilots, but I look at the end of now I'm spending on AI, but I don't see any improvement in my metrics. So then you realize that, okay, you're ready to do AI, but now we got to do this AI first mindset of starting from scratch, because it's not, the pilot motions are not working.
Makes sense. So it's like it eventually leads into like a scaling problem, right? Like it eventually leads into, like, at least that's what I'm hearing, is that you eventually learn, man, I can't keep growing and spending the same amount of money. I can't get things done at the speed at which I need it to be able to be done. And I guess like like if folks just start using ChatGPT on a daily basis, then they realize, oh shit, this is all possible. Why can't my every other system be like this?
Yeah, and CFOs are traditionally quite risk adverse when it comes to technology. They've been burned for so many years with bad ERP implementations and everything else. So I gotta say, I like the CFO community because they're the skepticals in the room.
Yeah.
So when the PE owners are pushing for, sponsors are pushing for the AI transformation, you cannot BS this community, right? You need to truly convince them, and spend time saying, okay, so let's reimagine together these flows, and let's think. And as you start to show the art of the possible, they become convinced. But I actually do appreciate a lot the CFO discussions because they push really hard in, hey, I'm already spending this much money in ChatGPT, and I don't see advantages.
And so one of the things that, like, when you assess a company's, like, this is actually related to the previous one as well. When you assess the company's ability to adopt AI, what does true AI readiness look like inside the office of the CFO, and when do companies consistently overestimate their maturity?
I would say Now, yeah, data has to come up at the top. I
Okay.
mean, because if you feed bad data, and look, sometimes it's overhyped. Like you need to have, very structured data. AI is becoming quite smart and unstructured and all that good stuff. But if you are feeding contradictory data, uh, so you need some sort of master data somewhere that you trust.
Mm.
The contracts, the products, the customers, the accounts. So I would say at least have some sort of data readiness. And again, it's not that hard, but it requires some effort. Um, so that's for sure number one. The second one is process. Do
Mm.
you know, are you thinking process wise, right? So, okay, in your procure to pay from A to B, what needs to happen? And look, you don't need specificity in the process because AI is amazing at actually taking inputs and outputs and figuring it out. But at least you need to understand these are the things, these are the inputs, these are the outputs, this is what's happening inside. Now let's apply AI. So, and sometimes companies are not ready for that. So that's number two, I
Mm.
guess. The last one I would say is a mindset readiness. And this is I cannot emphasize enough how our experiences, and again, everyone speaks like if AI has been here for years and it's recent. So, but in our experience over the last year of doing these transformations, there's a lot of resistance of change, of doing AI native motions, especially within finance. You would create an agent that does procurement analysis or invoice, a contract to invoice, and for the first week that agent will start to give you some noise, right? And it's very tempting to say this doesn't work, let's move on, I'll continue to do it because I feel really comfortable. And my push to CFOs and everyone else is like, don't, AI is here, AI will stay, push, don't let it happen. Actually, it's good that it doesn't work at the beginning because the reinforcement learning will make it better and better and better. And it's something that will be attuned to your company as we help this agent be better at identifying billing mistakes versus the contracts. And that will become your IP, not the IP of another. But I cannot
Nice.
emphasize enough how much resistance to AI, no matter what we say with our mouths. And I'm sure it's
Yeah.
happened to me, to you too, right? If somebody can say,
Yeah.
hey, I can lead your company with an agent, you'll say, absolutely not. But mindset, so data readiness for sure, process, I at least understand, but mindset readiness, it's the biggest barrier that
Mm.
we're finding today.
Makes sense. And so like just to get tactical here as well,
Yeah.
what are the 2 to 3 processes you re-architected on day one, right? Like if you just think about that
Yeah.
entire finance process as well, and why would you do those?
So, well, I mean, again, I have a hammer, which is we do a lot of revenue management or lead to cash, as CFOs call it. So to me, by professional bias, I would say when a PE buys a company, I always say, let's apply AI to identify any revenue issues that are happening in your lead to cash. So do you have
Mm.
leakage in discounts? Do you have incorrect billing? Do you have renewal slippage because you're not renewing on time? So that to me is number one, and it's very nice because AI loves inputs, outputs, and kind of checking, and it's very clean, right? Nope, you have a contract. These invoices don't match. You promised discounts for 3 months. We're in month 5, and you're still discounting. So I would say
Mm.
to us that lead to cash, or I guess in the land of the CFO, is more the quote to cash. Very simple, very important, and it gives you clean profits, right? Because every dollar of revenue that you're leaking, it goes directly to the bottom line. There's no cost to that. The second one, and I'm assuming you have that problem of professional, it's procure to pay, right? That's the other side of the coin, and I'm sure at Spendflo you see a lot of that, right? That's like
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
AI in your procure to pay. It's perfect. Again, you have contract, you have to pay, you can manage that, you have best prices. So start there, you're gonna get lots of dollars in procure to pay. And then the third, which gets a bit trickier, but I love it as well, is in the whole world of FP&A.
Mm.
Start there as well. Forecasting, scenario planning. I know it's very Excel based, but and I don't want to get too technical, right? But with the MCPs existing in the world, which are these things that translate English language to the system. So you can speak English to your systems.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to say, hey, what's going on? My ARR decline. What was the reason? Well, actually, you had a lot of downsells the price on this product is when you start speaking English to an ERP or a CRM, all lights turn on. The Christmas tree starts to get on. And I find that fascinating. So identify some revenue leakage to get that procure-to-pay in order. 3, force your systems to speak English and that's not very complicated, right? So put a couple of these MCPs on top of your current systems of record, because I would start there. And it's not hard. It's literally like, I'm talking weeks. And then you're going to get people moving into other more complex areas.
Awesome. This is very helpful. And so if you would look at the build versus buy decisions, especially when it comes to AI and AI tooling and the process, as someone who's built accelerators, architecture, pre-configured use cases, you've done a bunch of this work already. And so how should finance leaders decide what to build internally versus what to adopt off the shelf, right? So where do you kind of stand on that approach?
Yeah, it's a really difficult. So obviously, for the last 25 years, it's always been buy.
Buy, yeah.
And now when people want to, I mean, the challenge is, not the challenge, the opportunity is now building has become cheaper, faster, and can be very adapted. Obviously, you can create a lot of complexity when you build on your own. But anyway, I guess where I sit right now is anything that's very standardized. I think around your space of AP automations, and I would just go and buy.
Yeah.
Especially in the world of finance where ERPs are going to stay here for a bit longer. And even if you're switching ERPs or things like that, I would say you need very clear standards of accounting and different per region, and so it will be very hard for you to build. And I would build in areas where you can actually are very specific, or you can create differentiated value. Like your contracts are very specific. So again, now not that I want to. We actually work with companies that do revenue leakage, and we're agnostic in a way, right? We put whatever we need, and obviously we work with you guys. But that when there's a very specific thing for your company, I need these contracts, and then you might need to build. Now, are you building on your own, or are you building on top of a platform? I mean, everyone is not like Salesforce, Oracle.
Yeah.
I think their survival is on the basis of them becoming platforms to build on top, right? And they're trying hard, right? Agent Force and all that stuff. So I'm not saying they're going away. What I'm saying, I think they will have to become platforms to build on top of, because otherwise they are at risk of people wanting more specificity. So long answer to say, buy what's standard, build what's specific to you. The problem now, build is so easy that more and more people, I do see a hike in people building more.
Yeah. It's just that I'm always of the buy first specific before build, because then the maintenance after that is like a pain. Yeah, at least in my view. Yeah, very painful.
Yeah.
And just on if you were to fast forward 18 months from now, what does an AI native office of the CFO look like, not theoretical, but in day-to-day tools, workflows, decisions? Because a lot of your portfolio companies, or a lot of companies that you work with, are probably already there, or are getting there close to it. What does that look like, actually?
As in a modern finance organization, how it's run.
Yeah. What day-to-day, the day-to-day workflows, decisions that finance is making, how are they going to be making them? Before, we all know the old way, what would be the new, like, what do you see, or like your vision of what the new would look like?
Yeah. And it goes back to that kind of what the future of finance looks like. On I believe there's a and I'll repeat a bit, but the cycle time compression, or kind of you removed from your head the cycles of monthly close and things like that. Just happens at the same time. The CFOs become decision makers with a lot of
Mm,
quality because they have
mm,
access to all the information. And again, I cannot emphasize enough the mindset shift of a CFO today having to call someone in analytics who calls someone in IT to get a report about what happened 2 months ago on revenue, which is real, right? Versus going to your computer and say, what happened. And it's not just what happened on a straight line, but it's what happened as in, based on this data, I
mm,
think there was a problem with pricing and we mispriced this. That thing makes you super powerful as a CFO. So the quality of the decisions that we see coming from CFOs that are truly immersed in this use of AI, it just radically goes up. And then it has to be said,
mm,
costs go down.
mm, mm.
They go down fundamentally, like to a, and I'm not saying people cost also,
Just
but the
overall,
ability
yeah,
to
yeah.
do procurement way better, the ability to identify, the quality of revenue goes up, your DSOs get compressed. So,
Mm,
and that's where the beautiful thing about PEs is that every single point of EBITDA for them it means, because they're in
massive.
the process of, and so monitoring those specific areas
Yeah.
make PE-owned companies a very good petri dish for what the future could look like. And
Yes.
in its this ability to, use the data to your advantage,
Yes.
versus running tasks and tasks day in, day out.
Nice. And last but not least, like for the CFO listening on their commute, right? Like, what's the one action you'd want them to take in the next 7 days to start moving towards that AI native operating model?
I always say the same thing. Don't don't get paralyzed. So usually
Hmm.
traditional professional services models is, let's spend 3 months doing an assessment. Then we're going to
Yeah.
spend 3 months doing a design. Then we'll prioritize or I guess in that design we'll prioritize, and then that already is too late. So what I would strongly, my message to CFOs would be, pick a couple of no-brainers and start, and just get it done. Like, get going even before we even think about assessing, right? So again, if it's procurement, Procure-to-pay, it's like, wait, that sounds great. What are the tools out there? Let me talk to Sid. Like, what can we do
Hmm.
about it? Or revenue leakage. I'm pretty sure there's some leakage. Let's do that. So start by action, because then
Mm.
you can in parallel start to think about, okay, let's think about this. So that to me, my message number one is, no matter what exercise you're going to be doing over the next quarter or 2 quarters on becoming more AI
Hmm.
enabled or even AI native, start by action, which is counter, I know, against the almost like CFO,
Typical. Yeah.
but just do it because it will prove to you and to your organization that this is real and it's happened. The second one is literally spend a week with your teams, understanding what are the core areas where you should prioritize these things. And it doesn't take, 3 months analysis. You know it. The CFO can sit down and map what are the 3, 4, 5 areas that require AI, and that can be done quickly. Um, in parallel, and that's very important, it's your question about how do I know that my company is ready. Do a
Yeah.
bit of data readiness, and make sure that things are not going to break. So that would be my number two job. Start with action. Number two, do a bit of prioritization and diagnostic of, are we ready and for which areas. So it's almost like a 2 by 2. what is more important, and is it going to be easy or not to do? So if the data is ready
Yes.
because we manage contracts or we have all the procurement and all this, and it's an obvious one for us, let's just prioritize that. And the third one is don't change the paradigm by all means, and I'll stop with this third. Building AI is a whole different ball game, or not building, implementing. So putting a tool like Spendflo, or the implementation of AI has shifted from months to truly like weeks or days. Don't tolerate as a CFO PowerPoint-based plans and long every 1 month demos. Forced daily. We actually do have now daily sprint plannings because when we do this, and then we still have those demos every Friday with the CFOs where they come in and they see the demo, but with their teams we have daily sprints. So we've shifted the paradigm of the speed. Again, we're all about speed. So start now.
Yes.
Do a bit of prioritization, don't overthink it, and then force your teams to shift the paradigm of execution, I would say from months to days, and go for it. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Jordi, I think this gave us like a really good summary of like, how do I think about building an AI native finance function? When do I do it? What are some trigger points? And then for me to actually just get started, what do I need to do? So this is like honestly just a blueprint of what folks need to really be taking action on. So I really appreciate you taking the time and providing this blueprint to folks. But if for folks to find you, Jordi, is LinkedIn the best place? Where can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. It's probably the best place where I'm most active. And yeah,
Awesome.
that's the place where I put my thoughts.
Great. Thank you so much, Jordi, for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And thank you folks for joining us as well today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been great.